Hello everyone, let's start with our today's topic of our chapter, that is the rise of nationalism in Europe. So as you all know, in our previous video we discussed about the French Revolution and the idea of nation. Now today children, we're going to discuss about the making of nationalism in Europe. So, as you all know, that Germany, Italy, and Switzerland were divided into kingdoms, and also cantons, and also duchies, and all these have their rulers, and the rulers had their autonomous territories. Now, they actually did not see themselves as sharing a collective identity or a common culture. So, they considered themselves different from the other, and hence they had no feeling of collectiveness or no feeling of collective identity. And also, they were not having any common culture. Now, the Habsburg Empire ruled over Austria Hungary during that time. Now, the picture on the right hand side of the slide, if you see, this is the picture of the Frankfurt Parliament in the Church of St. Paul. Now, children, what happened is that in Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar, while other half of the population spoke a variety of dialects. So there were differences between the people of different languages who were speaking different languages. Now, besides these three dominant groups, there also lived within the boundaries of the empire, and the only tie binding these diverse groups who were actually speaking different languages, the only common thing was a common allegiance to the emperor. So the only common thing that they were having is their common feeling towards the emperor, and else other things were of all these communities different. They spoke different languages, they had different culture, but only one thing was common, and that was the feeling towards the emperor. Let's talk about the European society in detail. Now, in the European society, we had upper class. The upper class were the landed aristocracy, and they were the dominant group. They were dominating over the lower class, or you can say the people below them. Now, the upper class was less in number. There was the less population of this class, and population wise, they were less. Now, they had common interest and lifestyle, and very importantly, they had all the rights like voting rights. They enjoyed various privileges, they owned land, and they owned large country estates and townhouses as well. They were also connected by marriage ties, and most of them spoke French. So the upper class, or you can say the aristocratic class, was the dominant group in the European society. Now let's talk about the lower class or the peasantry. Now they were high in population, they were more in number as compared to the aristocratic class if we talk about. They were considered as low class people, and they were not dominating in nature, and majority of the people were peasants. They used to work on farm, or they used to practice agriculture, and these most of the people or the you can say the peasantry were landless, and they worked as serfs or as slaves to the aristocratic class. Now they were farmers as well as they were tenants to the aristocratic class who provided them with land, and they used to work on their land as tenants. Now they had no rights, they had no voting rights. They were always badly treated by the upper classes, and so that we can say that European society was unequally divided, as there was this division between the upper class and the lower class people, and the maximum rights, or you can say the power, was only in the hands of the handful of people, that is the aristocratic class. Now, if we talk about the aristocracy and the new middle class, so these people, the members of this class, were by a common way of life, and they were powerful. And numerically, if we talk about, they were a small group. Now, socially and politically, there was a landed aristocracy, and it was the dominant class, as I told you in on the previous slide. And the members of this class had a common way of life, and they had regional divisions, but they had some things that were common in them. They owned estates, as I've already told you. They owned townhouses, and they were powerful, but numerically they were a small group. And the majority of the population was made up of the peasantry that we talked about in the previous slide, that were the lower classes. Now, to the west, if we talk about, the bulk of the land was farmed by tenants and small owners, while on the eastern side and the central European side, the pattern of the land holding was characterized by vast estates, and that was all cultivated by the serfs. Now, in Western and the parts of Central Europe, the growth of the industrial production and the trade meant that the growth of towns, and there was this emergence of commercial classes whose existence was very important and whose existence was totally based on the production for the market. So, industrialization here played a very important role. And as you all know that industrialization began in England in the second half of the 18th century. But if we talk about France and other parts of German states, it actually occurred only during the 19th century. So firstly it started in England, and then it went on to the other parts of the world. Now, in its wake, if we talk about, the new social group was emerging, and that was the working class population. So, the middle classes that were made up of industrialists, businessmen, professionals, these were all coming up. So, these social groups were coming up, that is the working class population, and the middle classes that was made up of industrialists. There were businessmen coming up, there were professionals with the growth of industrialization. Now, in Central and Eastern Europe, if you talk about, these groups were smaller in number till the late 19th century. Now, if we talk about, it was among the educated and the liberal middle classes that there were these ideas of national unity that were following the abolition of aristocratic privileges. They gained popularity, these type of ideas gained popularity among these liberal middle classes because they were educated, they knew what was happening around them. So they were of this thought process that they wanted to abolish this aristocratic privileges. So children, I hope you liked the video. So that's all for today. We'll be coming back with the next topic with the next video. Till then, thank you so much.